I knew something was wrong the moment I opened my front door and smelled wet cement. It wasn't the usual dusty scent that floated around construction sites. It was thick, fresh, and far too close. I stepped outside, still half expecting it to be coming from a neighbor's house. But then my eyes dropped to the end of my driveway, and my breath stopped cold. A solid wall of gray cement stretched across the entire width of my driveway. Thick, smooth, and still wet, blocking my car, my property, and any hope of leaving. 2 HOA workers in neon vests were standing on either side, casually smoothing it out like they were icing a cake. Behind them, a small mixer truck hissed and rumbled. They worked as if this was completely normal, as if I wasn't standing there in disbelief, watching them imprison me inside my own home. What the hell is this? I shouted, walking down the driveway. One of the workers glanced up, shrugged, and kept smoothing. I repeated it louder. What is this? Before the worker could answer, a familiar voice chimed in from my left. The HOA president, Victor Hale, was leaning against his golf cart with his arms crossed, a smug grin plastered across his face. He wore his usual uniform, perfectly ironed polo shirt, 2 tight khaki shorts, and a clipboard he never actually used. Good morning, he said like he was greeting a neighbor about trash day. We're correcting a violation. A violation? I stared at him, stunned. What violation? Victor tapped the clipboard dramatically. Unauthorized driveway expansion. Your driveway violates HOA aesthetic standards and extends 26 inches beyond community regulation width. We're fixing it. I blinked at the cement wall. You decided to fix it by pouring a barricade across my property? Not a barricade, Victor said, as if offended. A correction. You poured cement in front of my driveway. I can't leave. He shrugged. Temporary inconvenience. It'll dry in about 14 hours. And before you ask, yes, you'll be charged with material and labor. The HOA can't shoulder the cost of your violations. I felt heat rise in my chest. You never even sent a notice. Actually, Victor said, flipping a page, we slid a courtesy notice under your doormat this morning. This morning? While pouring the cement. He smiled again. Efficiency. I could feel my pulse pounding. The workers continued smoothing the cement like machines, not even glancing at me. Car engines drove by slowly as neighbors peeked over their steering wheels, whispering behind closed windows. I wasn't sure if they were sympathetic or enjoying the spectacle. I took out my phone and recorded everything. The mixer, the workers, the cement slab sealing me in. This is illegal, I said loud enough for the camera to catch it. You're trespassing and damaging private property. Victor burst into laughter. Trespassing? This is HOA jurisdiction. The roads and easements fall under our authority. You're lucky we're not issuing a warning citation on top of this. I stared at him for a full 3 seconds, unable to believe the stupidity coming out of his mouth. Victor thought he had power here. He really, truly believed it. But as he kept talking, a strange calm settled over me, because the truth, the one Victor had no idea about, was already forming in my mind. He didn't know who actually owned these roads. He didn't know how deep my family's property line went. He didn't know that beneath his confidence was a pit of legal disaster waiting to swallow him whole. But I didn't say any of that yet. Instead, I asked, who authorized this? The board, he said proudly. Unanimous vote. And before you think you can argue, don't bother. This is final. I filmed him, zooming in on his arrogant grin. You're going to regret this. For correcting a violation? Victor scoffed. Please, stop being dramatic. The HOA is simply maintaining order. I gestured at the cement wall. Order? You blocked my driveway. This is harassment. Then call a lawyer, he said sweetly. I'm sure they'd love to tell you the HOA is within its rights. Good day. With a flick of his hand, he motioned to the workers. Make sure the edges are clean. He'll thank us later. They continued working as if I wasn't there. I stepped back, my hands shaking, not from fear, but from the building storm inside me. Victor believed he'd won. He believed the cement slab was the final word. But this wasn't the end. This was the beginning. I took over 40 photos, filmed for 10 straight minutes, and made sure to capture the moment the mixer truck rolled off the county road and back onto another street. Another road Victor thought he owned, but didn't. When I finally walked back into my house, the sun was climbing higher, casting long shadows from the cement barrier across my driveway. I wasn't trapped. They were, and they had no idea what was coming, because the HOA didn't know that the land under their feet wasn't theirs. It was mine, and they had just trespassed on every inch of it. I didn't sleep that night, not because of stress or anger. Those burned off hours ago. What kept me awake was the paperwork spread across my dining table, the faded survey maps, the handwritten notes from my grandfather, and the thick old deed binder that smelled like dusty leather and responsibility. The HOA thought they controlled everything outside my front door. They had no idea how wrong they were. Most people don't inherit land records. They inherit houses, money, maybe some jewelry. My grandfather had left me something far stranger, ownership of the land beneath the county roads. A weird, overlooked legal artifact from a 1950s annexation deal. Back then, the county negotiated with private landowners to pave new roads through farmland. They paid for the pavement. They maintained the surface. But they never bought the land under it. The original agreement stated the property rights stayed with the families who owned the land before development. My grandfather was one of them. And when he died, those rights became mine. It wasn't something I had ever cared about. It didn't matter. It had never caused problems. Until now, I traced my finger over the survey map, following the bold black lines marking the paved roads. Every single driveway connection, including mine, sat on land legally owned by the family trust. The HOA had no power over it. None. And what they poured cement on wasn't their easement, wasn't their right-of-way. It wasn't even county property. It was mine. My phone buzzed with a new message. From Victor, of course. HOA notice. You are hereby billed $6,470 for cement correction, labor materials, and expedited work order fees. Payment due in 14 days. I laughed, a long, genuine, disbelieving laugh. I could almost see Victor sitting at his computer, typing with that smug little smirk he always wore. He probably thought the number was generous. Then another message arrived. Failure to pay will result in immediate lien proceedings. That one didn't make me laugh. It made me incredibly calm. I walked outside with a flashlight and scanned the dried cement wall across my driveway. It stretched from side to side without an inch of clearance. My car was trapped. My property was trapped. And now, Victor wanted a lien on property he had illegally modified. I took more photos, detailed ones, capturing the texture, the height, the footprint extending onto the roadway. Anyone with half a brain could see the HOA had crossed every possible line. When morning came, I packed every document I had into a binder and drove my second vehicle, the one parked on the street, to the county planning department. The clerk recognized the street name before I even finished explaining the situation. "Oh," she said, raising her eyebrows. "You're with the old Henderson parcel?" That was my grandfather's name. "Yes," I said, and the HOA poured cement across the driveway without notice. Her expression shifted instantly from casual to serious. She disappeared into a back room and returned with a supervisor. "You're telling us the HOA performed construction on the Henderson roads?" he asked. "Correct." "You have the deed records?" I handed him the binder. He read silently for a moment before letting out a low whistle. "This is a mess. They didn't contact the county. They didn't request permits. They didn't notify the landowner. You?" "No," I said. "They just did it." He looked at me with that mix of disbelief and grim amusement that only government employees develop after seeing too many stupid decisions. "I'm going to be honest with you. They're in serious trouble." "Good," I said, "because they're threatening a lien." The supervisor actually laughed. "A lien? They committed unauthorized construction on private infrastructure. This isn't just a civil issue. This is criminal-level stupidity." He made some calls. Voices in the background were shocked, then angry. Then someone said, "Send someone immediately." By noon, I stood outside my home again, this time with 2 county inspectors and a sheriff's deputy. The inspectors took pictures, measurements, and notes. The sheriff didn't say much, just shook his head slowly at the cement slab like it was a body at a crime scene. Then Victor strutted out of his house, like he'd been waiting all morning to deliver some grand speech. He didn't see the county badges at first. Well, he said loudly. Have you come to apologize for the violation? I hope you brought your checkbook. The sheriff turned. Victor froze mid-sentence. Are you the HOA president? The sheriff asked, voice flat. Victor swallowed. Yes. The county inspector stepped forward. Did you authorize the cement construction on this roadway? Victor puffed out his chest. The HOA has full authority over... No. The inspector cut him off sharply. You don't. Victor blinked. Excuse me? You perform construction without permits, without county approval, and on private property you do not own. Private property? Victor repeated, looking confused. The sheriff tapped the cement with his boot. You poured this on his land, son. Victor's face drained of color. But I wasn't done. Not even close. I reached into my binder and handed Victor a copy of the land deed, the one showing my ownership of the roads. The moment his eyes hit the document, his mouth opened, then closed again like a fish gasping for air. You own the roads, he whispered. I smiled, calm and steady. Every inch you trespassed on. Victor stumbled backward, completely forgetting to argue. This was the moment everything shifted. The HOA had no idea what they stepped on. Literally. And now, they were standing on my property while the law watched them do it. Victor didn't show his face for the next 24 hours. Not once. Not during the county's first inspection. Not when the sheriff posted the violation notice on the HOA bulletin board. Not even when half the neighborhood gathered outside to whisper about what happened. But on the morning of the third day, he emerged, tight-jawed, sweaty, and holding a stack of papers that shook in his hands like dead leaves of storm. And for the first time since I'd known him, he looked scared. The county had already classified the cement barrier as illegal obstruction of private infrastructure, which came with fines, penalties, and, depending on the judge, possible criminal charges for the board members who voted on it. Word traveled faster than wildfire in a dry canyon. People stopped me on the street. Is it true you own the roads? You mean all of them? Can the HOA even exist if you own the land underneath? I gave the same answer to everyone. You'll see soon. And they would. That morning, the county returned, this time with heavier equipment, more people, and a supervisor who walked like he was coming to deliver bad news to an enemy. Behind him arrived the sheriff again, calmly sipping coffee, as if he'd seen this show before and was just waiting for the next scene. Then came the HOA board. Victor led them, flanked by Dawn, the vice president who always wore sunglasses like she was protecting herself from judgment, and Larry, the treasurer who pretended not to hear residents whenever they brought him complaints. They weren't swaggering. They weren't confident. They were pale and quiet, whispering aggressively between themselves as they marched toward the cement wall across my driveway. The county inspector didn't wait. Are you all the HOA members who approved this instruction? He asked, pointing at the hardened slab. Victor swallowed. Yes, but we... You authorize work on property that does not belong to you. Dawn jumped in. We were under the impression that the roads were HOA owned. The inspector cut in. Did you verify that assumption? Contact the county? Review the plat maps. Silence. It was a kind of silence that tightens around people like a noose. The sheriff looked at Victor. You filed a complaint against him yesterday. Victor blinked. Well, we thought. You thought wrong, the sheriff said. And you filed it while standing on land that doesn't belong to you. Again. I almost felt bad for them. Almost. The county supervisor cleared his throat. Here's what's happening. The HOA has illegally modified privately owned infrastructure. You've obstructed access, violated permit regulations, and committed trespass. We are ordering immediate removal of the cement barrier. At your expense. Dawn gasped. Immediate? As in now? As in 5 minutes ago. Workers stepped forward with jackhammers, the loud mechanical growl filling the air. The board members visibly flinched. That's going to cost thousands, Larry muttered. And it's going to be billed directly to your HOA, the supervisor replied. We'll also be issuing personal citations to the voting board members. Victor spun toward me, furious and desperate. You did this on purpose. You should have told us you owned the roads. I stared at him. You told me I had no authority. Why would you listen? He opened his mouth, but no words came out, only more panic. Neighbors gathered along the sidewalks. Some recorded, some smirked, some looked relieved, because this wasn't just about my driveway. For years, this HOA had bullied everyone. Letters, fines, threats, inspections. People paid because they were afraid of being targeted. Now, the bullies were the ones cornered. The jackhammers roared to life, ripping through the cement. Chunks flew, dust rose, and the HOA's correction began collapsing in on itself. Victor covered his ears. Dawn backed away like the noise was personally attacking her. As the slab broke apart, an old man from down the street shuffled over to me. Son, he said, I've lived here 15 years. Never seen anything wipe the smirk off Victor's face like this. I nodded. It was overdue. You're a hero, he whispered. I didn't feel like one. At least not yet. This was only cleanup, not justice. When the machinery paused, the county supervisor pulled out another set of papers. He handed them directly to Victor. These are preliminary fines, he said. More will follow as we complete the assessment. Victor scanned the first page and nearly choked. This can't be right. You're charging us for unauthorized construction, for obstruction, for failure to obtain permits, for trespassing, for damage to private property, and for every hour we spend here. Dawn rubbed her forehead. This will wipe out the HOA's reserve fund. It should, the supervisor said. Maybe it will teach you not to pour cement on property you don't own. Then he looked at me. We'll need a full statement from you soon. Of course, I said. The sheriff stepped forward too. And we'll need to discuss possible charges. Up to you, if you want to press them. I saw Victor's eyes widen. Good. But the best part happened when the final chunk of cement was lifted away and my driveway was clear again. The workers shut off their machines and the neighborhood quieted. The sheriff turned to Victor. You're lucky he hasn't pushed this further, he said. But be smart. Leave him alone. Victor nodded slowly, defeated. His shoulders slumped like a man carrying the weight of every bad decision he'd ever made. But I wasn't done. Not yet. Because clearing my driveway was only the beginning. And now the HOA had to face the real consequences of blocking a man who owned the roads beneath their feet.